One, two, three. Let's start the show.
We are living in a volatile political environment. You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorable.
Come on, man.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Come on, man. And if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It was a debate.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Deplorable Talk Show. You are here with Mr. Deplorable himself, Israel Perez. And here's to a belated 4th of July, people. Tastes like America. Damn right. Anyways, RoeVWade has been overturned, and I hope you were safe within the streets of whatever liberal state you live in.
Now we know what happened with the Supreme Court yesterday. And if you read Clarence Thomas' concurrence, he said, thank you, fuck Clarence Thomas.
Nothing yet. Women are going to control their bodies no matter how they try and stop us. The hell with the Supreme Court. We will defy them. Women will be in control of their bodies. And if they think black women are intimidated or afraid, they got another thought coming.
That sounds like incitement to me.
We will be out by the thousands. We will be out by the millions. We're going to make sure we fight for the right to control our own bodies.
Jesus. Fucking horse face yourself.
Holy shit!
Fuck. Yeah, dude blew threw flames at the officer. Jesus, man. You know what I find funny is that in every city, these riots, peaceful protests, they have been in states that abortion is still legal in. You know, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. You know, Washington, hold Seattle. That's why I wanted to say Seattle. But Washington, abortion is still legal. All right. New York, abortion is still legal. No. California, abortion's still legal. No. What else? Texas, even Texas. And there was no rioting going on in Texas. But abortion is still legal there. You know, it's up to like 6 weeks. Yeah, it's not up to 12 weeks or longer, but it's still technically, you can still get an abortion there. So it's still technically legal. It has restrictions. No, it's not like Idaho. Idaho, I think abortion is that you can't have it unless like you have unless it's incest or rape. And I think what's the other one? There was just, I think it's Kentucky. Kentucky, maybe? I think, yeah, I believe so. Abortion's like gone. You just can't have it. It doesn't matter what it is. So, just saying, there's no riots going on in those states. Anyways, today's big lead topic will be about the overturning of Roe v. Wade and how it affects Planned Parenthood v. Casey and the outrage of Clarence Thomas's opinion and what it might mean for future rulings of other cases. And before we get into any of that, let's jump into a segment called Trending.
Trump was too liberal. Tweet.
So, this is a segment where we will be looking at what was trending on Twitter this week. Well, in this case, last week. The holiday weekend put me behind. I had to celebrate America. Clarence Thomas was trending at number 2 for several days, right behind RoeVWade, which was at number 1, rightfully so. Which is funny because Justice Alito was the one who drafted the opinion. So you would think it would be Alito trending, not Thomas. No, and the reason Thomas was trending over Alito was most likely due to Thomas's opinion on Roe v. Wade's decision, which we will discuss in the main segments here coming up. In my opinion, the reason Thomas was trending over Alito is that the left, who portray themselves as racial justice warriors, are nothing more than racists themselves. They only like people of color when they are useful to their agenda. And if you disagree with them in any way, they reveal their true color. Like this person, for example. And no, not Andy, no. The example is of the person he is tweeting about. And she said some unsavory things here. So, Twitter user, and I'm not going to say her name. I'm going to give her that, I guess, respect. A user uses a racial slur against U.S. Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas, who is black, because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And IndyCat writes, doesn't that Nancy realize his rights are next? What a bold statement. So the reason we used Andy No's tweet is because IndyCat deleted that post that we were just looking at. Which I understand. Sometimes you tweet things you don't mean, and you realize you made a mistake, but you don't delete your tweet and then leave up the tweet defending the one you deleted, like she did in this post here. And this is how pissed off I am. Drop the N-word and people react. I'm not racist either, just making a point. It doesn't help your case. It doesn't. It doesn't. And obviously we used another screen capture because she realized her error and deleted the tweet as well. Look, all I'm going to say, AJ, if you use your picture and you use an acronym of your real name, and you put in your Twitter bio where you're from, you are no longer anonymous. Period. Just letting you know. I really doubt you're watching this, but just letting you know. You are no longer anonymous. And you got to realize that what you put out on the internet is going to get saved. Is going to get saved. So let's look at some of these replies here. And this is from Eric Matheny. The internet is forever. Yeah, no shit, huh? The next reply that I liked was from Darren M. Briggs. Honestly, your tweet is of zero surprise to black folks. We're all acquainted with your type of not racist. It's kind of refreshing to have one of you truly reveal yourselves and say it with your chest. It leaves no room for the plausible deniability of your peers. I agree. Thank you, Darren M. Briggs, for throwing that out there. And here's my favorite, and it's just for funsies. Cope and Seath. That's a big gavel. Now, you might be thinking, that's just one person online. She doesn't represent the rest of the movement. Yeah, okay. But what about this tweet? Let me get this back here. From the Daily Caller, of a video where protesters are chanting, "Fuck Clarence Thomas, he's a coon."
Fuck Clarence Thomas! Fuck Clarence Thomas! Fuck Clarence Thomas! Fuck Clarence Thomas!
Jesus Christ, man. Really, huh? That's what it comes down to. Wow. No, and I like how everybody, it's okay to say racial slurs when you're on the right side, huh? Is that what it is? That's what it feels like when you're watching that, right? You know, and here's another tweet from Uncle Hotep to close out this segment. And I like this one. Clarence Thomas brought them out, didn't he? And it's picture for the audio listeners of a group of women with a sign that says Women of the Democratic Party, and they're wearing coned hats and robes. I'm pretty sure that's taken out of context, but still funny. It's funny. So the left is the party of racial justice, and that was trending.
Trump was too liberal. Tweet.
So this brings us to the big lead for today. On Friday, the 24th of June, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which subsequently overturned Planned Parenthood v. Casey, because both are connected. And for those who don't know how these two are connected, Roe v. Wade established that in some roundabout way with the 5th and 14th Amendment, you have constitutional right to have an abortion, but also established that after 12 weeks, the fetus in the womb is now a human being and has constitutional protection. Let me take a water. I'll strike. Oh. Sorry. I'll strike. Anyways. Planned Parenthood v. Casey established restrictions on abortion within the 12-week period, but also left open the door for states to allow abortion up to 24 weeks because after 24 weeks, the baby is now viable and can survive on its own outside of the womb. Roe's decision was in 1973 and Casey's was in 1992. With the decision, you had people taking to the streets and are still out protesting this currently, as seen at the beginning of the show. Now, and what I find funny is people don't really know what they are protesting about. They say women's right to choose, but what does that mean? Really? Protesters would say that means the right to abort the child in her body, which I would say that you are advocating that women's right to choose means the right to murder. Protesters would say it's not considered murder if the baby is not viable. Okay. If I were to agree with you on that, it is not considered murder if the baby is not viable. Where do you draw the line of viability? Because if we look at the definition of viable, it says right here in biology of a plant, animal, or cell capable of surviving or living successfully, especially under particular environmental conditions. Okay. That's pretty broad. It is so broad that you could make the argument that a child is not viable till maybe after 5 years of age. If you were to take a 1-month-old up to a 4-year-old child and drop them off in the middle of the woods, the possibility of that child surviving is slim to none. Within that definition, that means the child is still not viable. A 1-month-old up to 4 years of age needs a parent or guardian to help keep them alive. They can't survive on their own. That means once outside of the womb, a child is still not viable when pertaining to that definition. Now, I know that is an extreme thought process, but we need to look at the extreme to examine the slippery slope of creating exceptions for abortions. And now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be exceptions, but those exceptions should be decided on morality and a case-to-case basis. The Supreme Court is not in place to decide what is moral, nor is it in place to decide what should be law. That is the job of the state legislators. The ruling that was passed by Amy Coney Barrett, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Grouch, and Clarence Thomas was the right thing to do. States should be the one who make decisions on abortion, and the American people within each state should have a say on what their state decides on abortion. No, and what I find funny is 5 out of 4 justices voted to overturn Roe. But the left mob is only blaming one man, and of course it's the black man on the court. The hate of Clarence Thomas has been strong since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, as we saw in the previous segment. The reason for this is that Clarence Thomas's opinion in the document raises some unsettling questions about future rulings, and let's bring that up, huh? So, Thomas J. Concurring. That's how you say that word. Mind everybody, okay? This is a long read, and I'm going to fuck some words up. I'm going to fuck some words up, so hey, spare me, all right? In the opinion of the court, I join the opinion of the court because it correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. Respondents invoke one source for that right. The Fourth Amendment guarantees that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The court well explains why under our substantive due process precedents, the purported right to abortion is not a form of liberty protected by the Due Process Clause. Such a right is neither deeply rooted in this nation's history and tradition, nor implicate in the concept of ordered liberty. I write separately to emphasize a second, more fundamental reason why there is no abortion guarantee lurking in Due Process Clause. Considerably, historical evidence indicates that due process of law merely required executive and judicial actors to comply with the legislative enactments and the common law when depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. Other sources, by contrast, suggest that due process of law prohibited legislators from authorizing the deprivation of a person's life, liberty, or property without providing him the customary procedures to which free men were entitled by the old law of England. Either way, the Due Process Clause at most guarantees process. It does not, as the court's substantive due process cases suppose, forbid the government to infringe certain fundamental liberty interests at all, no matter what process is provided. As I have previously explained, substantive due process is an oxymoron that lacks any basis in the Constitution. The notion that a constitutional provision that guarantees only process before a person is deprived of life, liberty, or property could define the substance of those rights strains credulity for even the most casual user of words. He's probably talking about me there. The resolution of this case is thus straightforward. Because the Due Process Clause does not secure any substantive rights, it does not secure a right to abortion. The court today declines to disturb substantive due process jurisprudence generally or the doctrine's application in other specific contexts. Cases like Griswold v. Connecticut. Right of married person to abortion contraceptive. Right to engage in private consensual sex acts. Right to the same-sex marriage are not at issue. The court's abortion cases are unique, and no party has asked us to decide whether our entire 14th Amendment jurisprudence must be preserved or revised. Thus, I agree that nothing in the court's opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. For that reason, in future cases, we should reconsider all of the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous. We have a duty to correct that error established in those precedents. The word almost sounds like presidents, huh? After overruling these demonstrably erroneous decisions, the question would remain whether other constitutional provisions guarantee the myriad rights that our substantive due process cases have generated. Yeah, generated. For example, we could consider whether any of the rights announced in this court's substantive due process cases are privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, protected by the 14th Amendment. And let's scroll down a little bit more. To answer that question, we would need to decide important antecedent, I think that's how you say that word, questions, including whether the privileges or immunities clause protects any rights that are not enumerated in the Constitution, and if so, how to identify those rights. That said, even if the clause does protect enumerated rights, the court conclusively demonstrates that abortion is not one of them under any plausible interpretive approach. Moreover, apart from being a demonstrably incorrect reading of the Due Process Clause, the legal fiction of substantive due process is particularly dangerous. At least three dangers favor jettisoning the doctrine entirely. First, substantive due process exolates judges at the expense of the people from whom they derive their authority. Because the Due Process Clause speaks only to process, the court has long struggled to define what substantive rights it protects. In practice, the court's approach for identifying those fundamental rights unquestionably involves policy making rather than neutral legal analysis. The court defines new rights in line with its own extra constitutional value preferences and nullifies state laws that do not align with judicial created guarantees. Well, that was a read. I'm glad I made it through. Jesus. Sorry about the hiccups there. I'm not used to reading, legal documents. That's why I didn't go to school for it, huh? And with saying that, I'm not a lawyer. So I'm not going to say I understand what he is saying here. But what I will say is that it appears that he is saying that cases that have become law as a result of court rulings will be reviewed to ensure that they are constitutional. And if they are not, they will be returned to the states as in Roe. No, which makes sense because the Supreme Court should not make laws. They should just be there to review, court cases and whether they are constitutional or not. States, the people who should be passing laws are the states, and the federal government should ensure that those laws do not violate our constitutional rights, period. Now, you have credible outlets taking his opinion and making a mockery of it, with headlines like this. Time magazine. Clarence Thomas signals same-sex marriage and contraception rights at risk after overturning Roe v. Wade. All right. The Washington Post writes, Biden, other critics fear Thomas' extreme position on contraception. Okay. CNBC writes, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas says gay rights contraception ruling should be reconsidered after Roe is overturned. Now, I doubt that these rulings will be overturned because contraception and same-sex marriage have constitutional standing. Roe, however, does not. And I'm sorry. I know everybody wants it, but it's not there. This is simply lamestream media installing fear in the American people in order for them to associate abortion with other cases that have concrete constitutional standings. Now, it's a method of energizing the masses so that they will continue to angrily protest. And then you have idiots like Michael Rappaport coming out of the abyss and saying this on TikTok.
You overturned Roe versus Wade. And the leader of the pack, Clarence Thomas, you handsy, good-for-nothing, sexual harassing motherfucker, you creep. You creep. If you had gotten what you want from Anita Hill with your overtures and your sexual advancements, and you had somehow, some way impregnated her, right? Being married and all that, right? Mr. Judge, Mr. Supreme Court Judge. If you had impregnated an Anita Hill, what would you have done with that baby, you fucking worm, you? You would have aborted it. You'd have paid for the abortion, and you'd have paid the hush money, because you're a creep, cock, sucker, you. Bunch of fake, phony motherfuckers out there. What would you have done with that baby, Clarence? Pubic hair Clarence, you freak. You freaky little horny old dirty breath. I know your breath smells like old coffee, newspaper, and stale Band-Aids, you creepy kook, you.
Bravo. No, I'm glad Michael Rappaport is filling arenas. No, because that was great. It was hilarious. No one knows who Michael Rappaport is. And just to kind of fill you guys in, he is a failed comedian, as evidenced by his hysterical rant he just delivered. It fucking hurts my head, dude. There's nothing but comedic gold there. So, Michael Rappaport said a whole bunch of gobbledygook mixed with misinformation. Clarence Thomas was accused of sexual harassment by Anita Hill in 1991. He was right about that. But it was a smear campaign brought on by the Democratic Party because they didn't want another conservative on the Supreme Court. They did the same to Brett Kavanaugh years later. And just like Brett Kavanaugh's hearing, all allegations were dismissed because they simply were just lies. Now, Justice Thomas gave a gravity-pulling statement at the beginning of the closing arguments of his trial. So let's give that a watch.
Committee will please come to order. Judge, it's a tough day and tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, do you have anything you'd like to say before we begin? I understand that your preference is, which is totally and completely understandable, that we go 1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. A second, and I think more important point, I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation. How would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Oh! Man! He holds himself so well. Now, you could see the anger in his eyes. I mean, I could. You could see the anger in his body. The way he sat up once he was called upon by Joe Biden. Why does Joe Biden look like he has more hair now than he did back then, right? But he composed himself well, man. If I would have been there and that was me, I probably would have begun this statement with, fuck you and fuck her. He's an amazing dude, and don't take my word for it. Take his, and let's give another watch. And now, just real quick, this is going to be a long clip. It's an interview of him, but I think it's important because it kind of gives you an insight of who Clarence Thomas really is. He's like I said, he's a good dude, and I'll let the clip show for itself.
Justice Thomas, we're sitting in the Supreme Court conference room for this conversation. Do you have a memory of the first time you ever walked inside this building?
Gosh, well, I do. I was a Hill staffer in the Russell Senate office building in the early 1980s. Probably, it may have even been as early as 1979. And I loved the city. I would walk over to the Library of Congress and then the then new Madison building. I poked my head in this building one day and was overwhelmed by what I saw, and I immediately left. I only got as far as the Great Hall.
Why is that?
The Supreme Court is special. It was special when I was a kid. It's special for what it's done, what it symbolizes, and unlike the Library of Congress, I love libraries. It's just interesting. The Supreme Court was, it was awesome in a sense that it was someplace maybe I'm not supposed to be here, and I was relatively young, but that was my first foray into the building, and I didn't come into it again for a number of years.
And in any of those visits, do you remember feeling aspirational, like this is a place I could be someday?
Oh, goodness, no. This was not something that I could look forward to or think about. I had actually not thought about being a judge. The irony was that I had been approached about considering becoming a member of the Missouri Supreme Court in my early 30s, and I thought that was far too young, and I did not know whether or not I wanted to be a judge. I didn't think I did.
Why does age matter when you're a judge?
Oh, I think at some point, maybe we all mature at different rates. We probably do. But I do think that there are decisions that we make at 40 or 50 that we would not have made at 20 or 30.
Yep, I agree with them there.
I think that you have judgment that comes from having had experiences and experience that you don't have in the early years. The whole building's special to me. The people in the basement of the building, to me, is special. Every room special. The various gardens around here, special. I think that if I had to envision what a Supreme Court should look like, this is it. I wouldn't change anything. There are some times when, particularly in my early years, you know, you're here late at night, you didn't have all this connectivity that we have now where you're free to work at home. But you get drained, you're tired, you're kind of wondering, why am I doing this? And I would just simply leave the building and go around front and look at this institution from that side. And it's hard not to get goosebumps, or it's not hard not to realize that this is much larger than me.
No, this interview makes me want to go to D.C. to go see all
you
this.
think you belong here,
Beautiful.
it's time for you to leave.
Awesome.
That this institution and what it represents and what we do is much larger than us. And I think the building reflects that. It says to each of us that it's much larger than us.
When you go out here or outside of this place, are you frequently recognized?
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Are you?
Oh, yes, the anonymity's gone. That is probably, or was probably, one of the more difficult things to accept. The sort of loss of anonymity, the ability to walk down the mall unnoticed or to go to Home Depot unnoticed.
Because of the confirmation hearings?
No, those have been 18 years
right, that's
ago.
what I'm thinking.
But no, it's still, I mean, I'm the only black guy up here, so, it's easier to recognize. I think when Justice O'Connor was the only woman, it was easier to pick one person out who's different. Maybe that's part of it. And then, I think that I've enjoyed such positive press, and notoriety. So I think that may be a part of it. I have no idea.
When people come up to you, what are the interactions like?
Oh, it's always very pleasant. They're very nice people. They're nice people, good people all over this country. One of the things that happens up here is we tend to be very heavily Northeastern in our mentality. We're 8 of the 9 of us are from Ivy League schools. This court doesn't represent all regions of the country. There's a tendency, there's an easiness to sort of to be almost cliquish in that way with law clerks and et cetera. I like the idea of getting out to be around the citizens, the other citizens in the country, the people who make it all work, the people who put out our fires, the people who build our homes, the people who fight our wars. I like being around them. I also like the idea that their kids can come up here and clerk, that they can be a part of all this. So yeah, I have lost the anonymity, and I would prefer to have that back, but that's not going to happen. But the good part is to have people like regular people come up and talk with you and talk to you. And there's some wonderful exchanges. I take my clerks to Gettysburg every year, and a gentleman came up, he was out of breath, and he had a maritime commission case. He was waving it. He had it on this parchment-like paper. He had my opinion. He said, "Would you sign this for me?" I said, "Why? Why are you even reading this opinion?" He said, "That's what this is all about." I said, "The maritime commission case?" Or you have someone who comes up and says, "Thanks for writing your opinions in a way that I can understand them." Notice he didn't say he agreed, but he could understand them. In other words, the Constitution has become accessible to him again. The laws about his Constitution are accessible to him. And that's what we try to do, to make sure that those people who sort of come up to you have a part of this institution and feel a part of this institution. So it's not all mysterious, as you say the conference room is.
It's awesome. That's awesome. I like it. And mind you guys, that was, if you guys want to watch the full one, obviously it's at C-SPAN. It's a 45-minute interview. And obviously I cut down to about 7 minutes. sorry, I brought out the stuff that, was important. Anyways, I believe that many of the protesters who are chanting "fuck Clarence Thomas" and portraying him as an evil man have no idea what they are protesting about. They've come out simply to be part of something. They don't care what it is or who it is causing harm to. All they know is that women's suffrage is bad, and that anyone who says, "Hey, there are flaws in your ideas," their response is "fuck you." And and then you have idiotic TikTokers saying things like this.
Y'all are gonna hate what I have to say today. Clarence Thomas is a hoodoo man. It's always been true, and it's weird that younger people don't know about it. It was part of the Anita Hill case. He accused Anita Hill of putting pubic hair on his can of Coke to influence him. His first language was Gullah. When we say that the Supreme Court has witches, warlocks, workers on it,
nobody says that.
This is why when people say hex the Supreme Court, do this and that, hex the patriarchy, do things like that, we forget that there are witches and workers on both sides. In the same way that people are using this in positive ways, people are using it in very negative ways. And I know that Clarence Thomas is one of them. Now, what his wife got going on, somebody would have to tell me. But Clarence Thomas is a hoodoo man.
Clarence Thomas is a hoodoo man. What the fuck does that mean? My generation is fucked, people. What's going on underneath here? I guess so. Let's close this segment out, guys. Everyone wants to call Clarence Thomas the black face of white supremacy. But that simply is not the case. And I'm not sure why the left associates white supremacy with everything that is opposed to them, but they do. And it's most likely due to so-called intellectuals like Jane Elliott. And let's watch a clip of her.
People live. You need to realize that there are more children attending segregated schools in the United States today than there were previous to Brown versus Board of Education. And that's a fact. You need to realize that it is not the intent of white people to let this situation change in favor of anyone but themselves. And right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute. And he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, "The main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country." He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you exactly, almost exactly what he says. He says there are three things we can do to solve this. Number one, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you? And if it doesn't, I want to know why it doesn't. If it doesn't, you don't understand what racism is. And I think it does. When we close Planned Parenthood clinics because we think they're there only for abortion, we need to take another look. They are used for many, many, many things, and many women need the things that they can get from Planned Parenthood clinics. But we are willing to do away with all that good to avoid allowing white women to have control of their own bodies. Now, nobody had better tell one of my daughters or granddaughters what they can do with their body. You haven't that right. Now, it would be interesting if we were as concerned about sperm cells, wouldn't it? I mean, we could take a whole lot of fun out of you boys' lives.
Right.
Oh, man. When I saw that on Twitter, it angered me, man. It did. I hate it when people misrepresent shit. Misinterpret stuff. And this lady's teachings are all throughout workplaces and classes. So, she said, segregation is prevalent in America. Well, she is wrong, in the sense that pertains to America, segregating people on the base of color. Yes, in communities where people of color are predominant, there will be more people of color in schools. Now, that doesn't imply that segregation exists in those communities. I grew up in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood, which resulted in my school being, if not 50-50 split between white and brown students, it was definitely 60-50 brown to white. But in southern Idaho, particularly in the Canyon County area, which is a migrant area, there is a greater ethnic population, which is ironic because I was always told as a child that I was a member of the minority, despite the fact that I was actually in the majority. But back on topic here, if the city of Caldwell keeps on its trend, the Hispanic community would become, the dominant race within Caldwell. But that does not mean that it is a segregated city. That's like saying that Compton is a segregated city or East LA is a segregated community. She's wrong. If I bring up statistics that prove her points, nowhere does it give names of high schools, countries, or states that have exclusively all-black high schools. And this is the Economic Policy Institute. Schools are still segregated and black children are paying a price. And we can scroll down through this and it gives you all kinds of percentages and what it wants to show you, huh? Nowhere, if we're looking at this, does it give a state? Does it give a school? Does it give a county? Period. And you can look that up yourself, epi.org. Nowhere does it give a state, a school, a county, period. She also said the book Birth Dearth is racist. The book was written by a racist Jew who wrote the white people are getting dominated by blacks. Her statement is not true. The book does talk about the low birth rate amongst the white community, but it's not as bad as she made it sound. Yes, the anti-Semite Jane Elliott was correct. Ben Watersburg did write a book about the birth rate, but it was about middle-class women who were predominantly white at the time, pursuing careers and ignoring having children, as explained in the article written by the Washington Post. Birth dearth. Somewhere toward the end of the birth dearth, there is a cartoon of a woman running her hand through her hair, mournfully announcing, "I can't believe it. I forgot to have children." The absent-minded woman, this white, middle-class, educated American of childbearing age, is the primary culprit of Ben Watersburg's new book. She is the woman who left the six-pack of children off her life shopping list until it was too late. Women like her, women who have less than their share of children, are just not involved in personal dramas. They are, in his views, responsible for the impending population decline and political fall of the entire Western world. And this is the same problem that persists today. Women of all colors who choose career over motherhood are not having kids, which is producing a decline in population. She said Ben Watersburg is racist because he is talking about keeping the white population up. And you have to understand, in the 1980s, when he wrote this book, the middle-class American was white. If the middle-class American did not produce kids, there is a possibility that American traditions would disappear. And I understand his fears. Do I think his thoughts were ignorant? Yeah. But is he racist? No. The fear of ethnic communities changing culture is warranted. The fear of your community not having enough babies to combat the culture is warranted. the fear of your culture disappearing because another population's culture became predominant is warranted. There is nothing racist about it. So, if you played a game called Civilization, in which it's a turn-based strategy game, a culture war is something you have to worry about because dominating civilizations in the game with your culture can grant you a win. It's not racist, it's accurate. But the thought of another race born in America not holding onto American culture is ignorant, and that's all it is. Jane Elliott is wrong for presenting Ben Watersburg's thesis as racist, and I understand what racism is. She's just stupid. And the last thing she talked about, or one of the things she talked about, was Planned Parenthood. So she said Planned Parenthood is something that women need. But Planned Parenthood has a background that they desperately want to forget, which the name of that person is Margaret Sanger. In this article, written by the Washington Post, Planned Parenthood to remove Margaret Sanger's name from New York clinic overviews on eugenics. Planned Parenthood of Greater New York will remove the name of the national organization's founder, Margaret Sanger, from the Manhattan clinic in an attempt to reckon with her ties to eugenics movement, the organization announced Tuesday when this was written. Sorry, let me scroll this down here for you guys. You guys know what I'm reading from, huh? An early feminist activist, Sanger is widely regarded as a pioneer in American reproductive rights. She opened the first birth control clinic in the United States more than a century ago and helped create access to birth control for low-income minority and immigrant women. So, what was the eugenics movement? Well, it was a thought process held by the minds of the Nazi Party. Boom. Theories of eugenics. A racial hygiene in the German context shaped many of Nazi Germany's persecutory policies. I think that's how you say that word. A bunch of words today that I can't pronounce, guys. The article goes on to say, a significant number of Nazi persecutory policies stemmed from the theories of racial hygiene or eugenics. Such theories were prevalent among the international scientific community in the first decades of the 20th century. The term eugenics, from the Greek for good birth or stock, was coined in 1883 by the English naturalist Sir Francis Galton. The term's German counterpart, racial hygiene, I'm not even going to try and say that word, was first employed by German economist Alfred Poltz in 1895. At the core of the movement's belief system was the principle that human heredity was fixed and immutable. Okay. All I gotta say is Jane Elliott can go fuck herself. She is an intellectual with a negative impact on American society. She helped establish affirmative action policies in the employment and educational spaces, which in my opinion has aided to the adoption of Marxist beliefs in American society. Now, and this ends the big lead segment. So, let's end with something, fun, guys. I got a new segment for you, and it's called What's the Pop in Pop Culture? In this new segment, we will look at pop culture news, whether it's about movies, music, art, or famous people. Unfortunately, pop culture plays a large role in the overall culture of America. So, juicy hit pieces on who's fucking who within Hollywood are important to know because they provide a glimpse into America as a whole. Now, and if we look at the box office charts, now for the day I wrote this segment, let's bring that up. The numbers. We will see that Elvis, Top Gun, and Jurassic World are on the top 3 movies leading the summer box office. And this is for the chart of June 28th. Top Gun has been in the movie theaters for 5 weeks and is still at number 2 with a total gross of just above $500 million. The flop, that was Jurassic World Dominion. And I'm saying a flop because it was a shitty movie, in my opinion. Has been in movie theaters for 3 weeks and is still at number 3 with a total gross of $300 million. So, now, today's segments will focus on the movie Lightyear. And as we can see, if we go back to this, it has not broken the 100 million mark. You know, what was supposed to be Disney's top hit for the summer can't even make the top 3. And just to give you some background before we jump into the controversy, Lightyear is a spin-off of the movie Toy Story. Toy Story was the second highest grossing film in 1995. Number 1 was Batman Forever. I remember going to watch both of those movies. I think my dad took me to go watch Toy Story. I think I watched both of them in the Dollar Theater. I went with my dad to go watch Toy Story, and I think we went as a family to go watch Batman. So, Toy Story won an Academy Award. It received 3 nominations: Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Soundtrack, and Special Achievement. You know, and obviously it won the award for Special Achievement. Each sequel of Toy Story outdid the previous installment. Toy Story 4 was the 5th Disney film to gross more than $1 billion. No, Lightyear is riding on the coattails of a too-big-to-fail franchise, and somehow it shit the fucking bed. And the reason it shit the bed is probably because it was too woke. Like they say, go woke, go broke. A lesson Disney is learning the hard way. And here's an article from Bloomberg. Disney's Lightyear misses estimates in debut, trails Jurassic World. And the bullet points here: film took in $51 million in opening, trailing Jurassic World. Was Disney's first theaters-only kids film in more than a year. So they were planning on this being a big fucking thing. Let's get down here. The Walt Disney Co. and Pixar marked a rare miss at the box office this holiday weekend, with the animated kids film Lightyear falling short of estimates in what was supposed to be a triumphant return to theaters. The film, a kind of an origin story for Buzz Lightyear, the astronaut Toy Story fame, brought in an estimated $51 million in the US and Canada. That trailed box office pros predictions of between $76 million and $105 million. It hasn't even hit that, huh? And was one of the worst domestic openings against expectation for Pixar film. It failed to knock Jurassic World Dominion out of first place at the box office, data tracker reported. So, I like, within this article, they give no speculation on what might be the reason for the film shitting the bed at the box office. So let me show you why this film ate shit. And it's a clip of Chris Evans and others calling people idiots because the film's controversy.
Whenever you do something about representation or diversity or whatever, he
just looks annoyed.
There's always pushback. How would you counter that, I suppose?
Well, I'm annoyed.
The real truth is those people are idiots. I think throughout history, you can see every time there's been social advancement as we wake up. The American story, the human story is one of constant social awakening and growth. And that's what makes us good. And when that happens, there's always going to be people who are afraid and unaware and trying to hold on to what was before. But those people die off like dinosaurs. And so,
Okay.
I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth that makes us human.
I would say to those people, just like with Buzz, refurbish your idea of tradition. Understand that it's to infinity and beyond. It's time to move forward. It's time to accept and look and enjoy all the faces that have always been there. You know what I mean? They always been a part of the picture. You just try to paint them out. So that's also what this is about. It's about this is what it looks like. This is what it's always been. And yeah.
I like how she keeps on saying to infinity and beyond. Like it means something. She has no idea of what she's talking about, obviously. No, the loss for words there says it all. And then she ends with, and I cut it off and I'm sorry. She goes, yeah, to infinity and beyond. Like it fucking means something. It, to infinity and beyond doesn't mean anything. You can't go beyond infinity. It is an oxymoron catchphrase. That's what makes it funny. No. Jesus. We lost the concept of Toy Story, which was supposed to be a comedic film for children. And no, I didn't mean to bury the lead here. But this is what they are addressing when they talk about the critics on diversity.
Well, seats at this movie theater in Fort Myers have been packed with
I don't know why
who
it's
want
coming
to
out
see
one
the
side or
movie
not.
Lightyear.
They're mixing, not
We're
mine.
learning that a Collier County day camp was slated to see the movie today, but it was abruptly canceled, all because of a kissing scene between two cartoon characters.
To infinity
and beyond.
I'm a big fan of Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear.
It turns out, though, that some parents in Collier County are not.
Do you think children should see it?
In my personal opinion, I say no.
It's opinions like that which Thomas Felke said stopped kids at his children's day camp from seeing the movie.
And apparently it's been canceled for all of Collier County summer camps, particularly due to a same-sex kiss scene.
Something he says he's comfortable letting his kids see.
And he understands what's going on in the world around him. And sure, we could take him to go see this movie on its own, but that's beyond the point here.
What is happening right now?
Mental health counselor Dr. Laura Streffler.
So yeah, a controversial same-sex, not sex. A controversial same-sex kiss scene. I'm sorry, it just sounded weird when it came out of my mouth. So, do I agree with it? No. And no, 14 other countries don't agree with it either, And here's Yahoo News. Pixar's Lightyear banned in 14 countries over same-sex kiss. Disney Pixar's forthcoming film Lightyear has now reportedly been banned in 14 countries over the inclusion of same-sex kissing. On Monday, the animated film was banned by the United Arab Emirates due to its violation of the country's media standards. Lightyear was scheduled to release on Thursday, 16th of June. The UAE, like other nations in the wider Middle East, is a Muslim-led country that criminalizes same-sex relationships. I don't know why Disney would think they would. Anyways. Disney has reportedly been unable to secure the release of Lightyear in 14 Middle Eastern and Asian countries, including Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Kuwait, Egypt, Indonesia, and Malaysia. The film is unlikely to release in China as well, according to South China Morning Post. A producer of Lightyear reportedly told the publication that she assumed the film wouldn't open in China after Disney declined to make the cuts authorities asked for. And that's the only praise I'm going to give Disney, is bravo. Thank you for not bending your fucking back for China and the Middle East. They can all go fuck themselves. Thank you for not bending your back. And if you're wondering, what's the scene look like? Here's a TikTok clip of, the controversial scene. Right there. Right there. That's what it was. It seems silly, right? But I mean, it's silly because that's our adult mind there, right? I mean, there's no reason to bring up social issues in a kid-friendly film. And it's about a male animated toy space cadet cartoon. That's what it is. I could understand if the main character, was a lesbian and Disney was upfront about the type of content that would be shown in the film. But to simply sneak it in is the wrong thing to do. I'm sure a lot of people who took their kids to go watch this and saw that, probably didn't appreciate it. You know, it's kind of just like, what if they don't want their kids to be to get to see that? I mean, it's bad enough we see it in commercials all the time and it's pushed in our faces. You know, why does it need to be thrown in a kids movie? But anyways, good luck to Disney. If they choose not to learn from this mistake, Daily Wire is right behind them to pick up the audience they left behind. And this was What's the Pop in Pop Culture. It's a great stinger. I love it. But that ends the show, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the like button and definitely subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure to ring that bell. I upload episodes weekly, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. You know, audio listeners, you can subscribe too. Thank you for listening. But hey, you know you want to watch these videos we play. You can watch the Deplorable Talk Show on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can listen to the Deplorable Talk Show on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Stitcher. You can find links to all that stuff, in the description below. And you can head to the Deplorable ENT. That is the general hub for all things deplorable. Take care, guys. See you next episode.